What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Golf Thursdays. Sean Fitzgerald here, Upper Valley Aquatic Center. We're the personal trainers. So glad you all be able to join us and kind of chit chat about really golf game and what's going on and how we can work on certain areas of the body to really improve being pain-free. Maybe loosen up some stuff, get a better swing. Start to lower some scores and things like that. So. Like always, go ahead, like, subscribe, share, try to get some, more people to tag along and get involved in the conversation and see what we can do, kind of spread the word, and, we'll go from there. So take a look at things, we're moving into certain areas of the body that we kind of run into. So, this week we're going to take a look at basically your hands and your fingers, right? So, how many people do you kind of watch while you play, around? Like, when you're out on a golf course and, who do you see playing, right? Do you see a lot of young kids? Do you, like say maybe pre-teenager, then you got some teens, maybe some, in between there, some young adults or 20s to 30s. And then, like, what do you take a look, when you look at, like, see who's actually on the courses, right? So, when we kind of talk about it, it's usually, they're older, ladies and gentlemen, right, that are playing, more the majority of the ones that we're working on, because, right, they got more time, right? Like their careers are already settled, or, they're able to play a little bit more. They have the luxury of, being able to take some time off, where some younger ones, might, they got to work to be able to, bring some money in to help pay for school or, or whatever, right? So when you take a look at that, right, take into account, all right, I'm playing with, say, like a 50 to 60-year-old, right? Like they've been working, right, in their field or, whatever for at least 20 plus years, right? So when we take a look at their hands, right, it's starting off as they're young. So like right around 50 years, right, their hands might look something like this, right? So if you ever, now you're going to start kind of watching, right? So you think about it from the moment, if you got any young ones or anything like that, friends that got young ones, take a look at a progression. Everyone starts to do this, right? What are we doing from the moment you're able to start to move, right? When, from toddlers, infants, right? What are they doing? Constantly trying to grab, right? We're reaching out, constantly trying to like grab onto a ledge to hold us, grab onto a toy to bring to us, grab onto mom and dad, right? Grab onto a bottle, a cup, silverware, or whatever, right? So for all those years, right, as we're learning to develop, right, from just a motor control standpoint, we're grabbing, right? We're just constantly looking to grab. So we're in a constant state of flexion, right? As you get older, right? Technology is going to change. Keyboard, right? Fingers always, right, move, right? Writing utensil, grab it, or in this, right? Steering wheel, right? So we're fork, knife, spoon, you drive a standard, right? Your hand is constantly there, right? So when you think about it, how often do you actually expand out, right? How often do you really get your fingers to go the opposite way, right? Do you do any extension work, right? Do you just kind of sit here and try to force your hands to go back at all? Most people probably don't, right? Do you put them on a flat surface and just try to, work on, bringing the extension, all right? So they make these, it's kind of these little silicone bands now, like they toe space, all this stuff. So it's kind of, like it's on a ball and it's basically working, your hand in this general direction. It's kind of resistance going out that way. A lot of tennis players use them. So basically what we're working on is, instead of going this direction, right, the kind of the little elastic, the kind of like this, we're kind of strengthening going the opposite way then, right? So, what I want you to think about is when, say you're in a, quadruped position, right? So hands and knees, right? Take a look at your hands, right? Can we kind of force you to open it up, right? Let's get you to get your hands spread as wide as we can, right? To kind of open up the hand, right? And to prevent them from, staying stuck, right? So in turn, if you can start working, the earlier the better, right? But, if you're coming to us and, you're a little older, no big deal. Start now, right? As soon as you can, do it. Just work on extension, right? Because when you think about it, take a look at when you go into your club, right? If my hands are fixed into a certain position, I'm going to grip a club a different way, right? My hand isn't going to allow me to line up where I want, right? So bring it down this way a little bit. So we got, your pen, right? I'm in this position for so many years. How do you think that's going to look when I'm trying to hold on to a club, right? My hand is going to look, more like this, instead of maybe a line, and I'm kind of gripping it like that, right? So if you can't get your fingers to align where you want along the grip, then the club's not going to feel right, within your hands. And then in turn, that's going to put you in when you come into the backswing, right? You're going to probably be like, oh, I feel like I don't have a good grip on the club, right? It's going to feel awkward. That's where your body's going to start to compensate somewhere else. So you're going to alter, your shoulder plane. You're going to alter, maybe reverse, so you're going to come down, like coming with a chicken wing, something that is going to throw off your ability to get where you want to be, right? So something as simple as hand position, right? And even coming down, like being able to, roll over or anything like that. Like you're coming down, right? If your hands are not where you want them to be, then you're not going to be able to come through how you want, right? So we want to take a look at why, and if you think about it, how many swings are you taking? Basically, here, right? And you think of the speed of where you're trying to swing the club, right? You're trying to get that club speed faster and faster and faster, right? So that repetition. So you're already taking, there's a lot of bones in here, right? There's a lot that can go on. Like, has anyone ever broken, something within their hand and, their fingers or something, right? Like, it's kind of a nightmare, right? There's just so much going on there that it's not the easiest to put back together. It's just, there's so many intricate details that go on within the hand, right? To allow precision, movement, right? That's the advantage of us being able to use our hands the way we do, right? So we want to make sure that what we're doing outside of work, kids, family, or anything like that is, if I'm just sitting at my desk, I'm just kind of hanging out, stress balls might be great for one thing, but you're in a constant flexion, right? So we need to work on going out, extending, right? Extending and opening up, right? Putting my hand down on a surface, opening up, like resisting a constant state of flexion, right? Because over time, right? And this is if you're lucky not to be injury free. Like if you play baseball, softball, something like that, like where a ball hits you in the hand, foul balls, batting, you get hit by a pitch, right? Hockey players, getting hit somewhere, around here, like where maybe the glove isn't at, any sport that really, football players, constant tackling, soccer players, if you're on the ground, you get stepped on, so there's a lot that you don't think about. Basketball players, did you ever jam a finger, right? Like that's, things like that. Your hands, you don't know how available your hands are until if you ever hurt your thumb, right? You can't, turning a door handle, right? It's kind of, that's when you really start to develop, might be a little bit kind of, a little important that, I need to be able to do this. So we want to make sure, one, you're going to want to avoid injuries, right? It's easier said than done, but if you're able to be healthy enough to where you don't get any breaks, fractures, sprain, things like that, like that's great, right? And then work on, we want to go back, we want to extend, we want to try to get rid of, 10, 20, 30 years of this, of constant grabbing, right? So the more we can extend, right, the better, right? The more we can open up, right? The better, right? Because we want to be able to, move our wrists up and down, right? We want to be able to make sure our hands can really grip the way we want, right? So trying to avoid those small little injuries, right? Because remember, the club speed is key. So we're going to go through a lot of repetitions to where, if you say, have you ever got tingly fingers? If you hit something, hit the ground a little, you hit a little fat and, you just didn't feel right, with the club in your hand. So that's the things that we want to try to avoid. So if we can start strengthening the opposite way, right? Build up a little bit more resistance to something like that, then those overuse injuries, those little things that, kind of, you tweak a little bit, you're on the ground, you push yourself up and you're like, oh, that didn't feel right. So those are things that we want to try to avoid, right? So, there's other things that come in, like hammering and things, like there's a lot that can come into play. But just from a basic standpoint, if you're able to just extend these fingers, right? Extend, right? Try to build up the endurance the opposite way, you'll be able to really tolerate a lot more. You'll be able to have a little bit more freedom, with your fingers. And that's really all we want to try to do, right? It's just try to avoid the injuries, right? Especially something with a hand. Your hands are very important for the game, right? If you hurt your hand, you can't play. Like there's no way around it, right? And so that's just for the extension. So what about blisters, right? So how many of you have gone out and you're like, I got to play, I haven't played in a while, so let's go hit a bucket or two of balls, right? Well, if you don't have any calluses built up from, working out, say, in the gym with the bars, right? Or, you didn't wear a glove or something, or, just really, that's just a lot of range practice where your hands might not be ready for it. So sometimes it's quality over quantity, for a lot of stuff. So we want to make sure, you're going to want to hit 100 balls, but it's have you hit 20? Is your body even prepared to handle 100 balls, right? When you see these guys, they're on tour for a reason. Like they'll play around and then they'll go to the range and work on shot. Well, their hands are accustomed to gripping the club for swings on swings on swings on swings, thousands of swings, right? So they built up to that tolerance. So you have to kind of do the same thing. Whether it's, maybe only hitting a small bucket of balls, maybe starting a little bit earlier, maybe, just loosely swinging, at your house or something in the garage or, out in the yard, like something to kind of build up a little bit of thickness of the skin right around it, right? So think about everyone that's in, kind of in the north where you got to rake leaves, right? Or, if you rake after you mow, like your clippings, right? So when you rake, like, do you get any blisters along, right here, between your thumb and your pointer finger, right? So from holding and raking, right? If you don't wear gloves. So you got to build up that protection, right? After, you learn once and then you realize probably maybe should have wore something, right? So same thing goes with swinging golf clubs, on and on and on, right? Build up the layer of protection, right, on the skin, right, to withstand it. Just don't go out and try to kill as many golf balls as you can at the practice range, knowing that blisters are probably going to be a potential, for you to play the next day. And then it just makes the round, very, very frustrating, and then you're not going to enjoy and want to come back, right? So blisters are a main thing you want to watch out for, right? A lot of it's because you're swinging too many swings before your hands are really ready. You want to make sure that you're kind of ahead of the game and starting to work on that abrasion, get that toughness of the skin so it's not so fresh. And we want to make sure we're working on extension, not constant flexion, right? So even when we lift, right, we're always trying to grip a bar, grip a dumbbell, grip a resistance band, right? So we also want to make sure we're training going out. All right. So there's a little bit of tidbits, a little bit kind of maybe a little something that you might not have known that, hey, like, oh, I didn't think about, blisters, or I didn't think about extension. Those are the little things that might help you trigger something else that, might be going on. And, remember, how we hold the club is going to be based off of how well we move our hands. So you got blisters, you got injuries, that's going to change the way you hold the club, which is in turn going to change the way you swing, right? Club's going to move in your hand, body's going to change, different position to allow the movement that you want, because it's going to feel weird, and in turn will affect your shot, right? So it's everything's kind of linked. So those are something to kind of think about. So hopefully today kind of walked away with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of, oh, I didn't think of that, or like, oh, you're right, like those are some ideas that like I gotta kind of keep on top of and really work on it, and hopefully helps you around. And so like always, thanks for tagging along and kind of sticking with us and figuring out what works, what doesn't work for you. And basically what we'll do is like, subscribe, and see how much more knowledge that we can do, and we'll go from there. But thanks all for joining. And Thursday's weekend looks like the north might be a little wet, but hopefully you guys are still able to get out and play before the season ends. And then everyone else, hey, enjoy your weekend, and hopefully you got some good scores going on and you get to have some fun. All right, you guys enjoy. See y'all later.